Bruchim haboim. Welcome everyone. We're about to begin Be'ezras Hashem together on Daf Samech Zayin Amud Aleph. 9 lines from the top. The Gemara had previously discussed a machlokes in regards to when you have two side-by-side chatzeros. One chatzer opens up to the other chatzer, and each chatzer opens up to the Rishus Harabim or to the Mavui. Can one mevatel the Rishus to the other one or not? It's a machlokes Shmuel Rabbi Yochanan. Says the Gemara, Rav Chizda Rav Sheshes kipage bahad yadadi. When Rav Chizda and Rav Sheshes would meet each other, it says Rav Chizda mirtan sifsofose bimasnaisa de Rav Sheshes. Rav Chizda was afraid. He trembled at the tremendous bakiyas of Rav Sheshes. How much Rav Sheshes knew different mishnayos, braisos, and the breadth of his knowledge, that maybe he would ask him a question that he would not know. Rav Sheshes mirta kule gufe mipulpule Rav Chizda. Whereas Rav Sheshes, he trembled, his whole body trembled because of the tremendous depth of knowledge, the sharpness and the pilpul of Rav Chizda. And therefore he was afraid that he would ask him, Rav Chizda would ask him, Rav Sheshes, a question in halacha, maybe he would not know the answer. Says the Gemara the following interchange. Boy mine Rav Chizda Rav Sheshes. Rav Chizda asked Rav Sheshes the following question. Shnei batim mishnei tzidei rishus harabim. There are two houses that are opposite one another, and there's a rishus harabim going between them. Ubo nochrim v'ikifo mechitza b'Shabbos, and nochrim on Shabbos then made chatzeros, the hainu, they enclosed the other open sides, making chatzeros in between. So in other words, they encircled those sides that were opened. So you had two houses opposite each other, which were making mechitzos, but then you had mechitzos were then made on Shabbos by nochrim. Now, a mechitza on Shabbos, bein b'shoiging b'memezid, is considered to be a mechitza. And certainly over here, when it comes to Nachrim, who made the mechitzos, so there's no shaila about the mechitzos. The shaila here is whether one can mevatel his rishus to the other one or not. Says the Gemara to explain this question. Ma'u, what's the din? Ali b'demanda omar ein bitul rishus mechatzer lechatzer lo tiboilach. According to one who holds that you cannot mevatel your rishus when it comes from one chatzer to another chatzer, in the scenario that we said before, when you have two chatzeros side by side, that are opened up each one separately and independently to the Rishus Harabim or to the Mavui, and yet they have a entrance from one to the other one. So according to the opinions, you cannot mevatel Rishus to the other one because, after all, here we're talking about a situation when you could granted make an Eruv, but it was not aser one to the other one because each one has an independent chotzer. So this Mandarma says you cannot mevatel your Rishus to the other one as well. So according to that Mandamar, it's not even a question. Why? Because hashto the boy lirbuve me'esmol motzi ma'arve. According to this case where you have two side-by-side chatzeros, and he holds you cannot mevatel your shus, even though you could, yes, make an eruv on Erev Shabbos. Amris ein bitul rishus mechatzer lechatzer hacha over here vada. So here hacha rather the e boy li'uvuve me'esmol l'matz me'irve lo kol shekain. Here in this scenario, since before the Nachri made the enclosement of the mechitzos, making into a chotzer, before Shabbos, you would not be able to make an eruv because there was only two walls, one opposite the other, wasn't a chotzer. So kol and certainly, according to this opinion, you will not be able to mevatel your rishus to the other one because over here, certainly you wouldn't even have the ability to make an eruv. In other words, if in the case where you could make an eruv, still that's not good enough because you are not oyster one on the other. So the fact that it's making an eruv is not enough to allow them to mevatel rishus on the other one. Here you couldn't even make an eruv, so certainly you cannot mevatel rishus to the other one. So it's not a question according to him, which would be according to Shmuel. Kiti boiloch. That which we're asking is aliba demanda omar, according to the opinion, namely Rabbi Yochanan, sheyesh bitul rishus mechatzer lechatzer, who says you can yes mevatel rishus from one chatzer to the other chatzer in that scenario when you have two chatzeros next to each other. Why? Because Hasam over there, the ibo le'irbuve uve me'esmo motim me'arve, Biltonami mati mevatel. He holds that since you could make an eruv on Erev Shabbos, therefore can you also mevatel your reshus to the other one. In other words, it's good enough the fact that you just have this one mila of being ma'ariv to allow you to mevatel, even though again they're independent chatzeres and they're also one on the other one. That's enough according to this mandam Rabbi Yochanan. So the question is, aval hacha over here, deloy matzu me'arve me'esmol. Bituli nami loy matim batel. Does he hold that since you cannot make an eruv on erev Shabbos because it's only again on Shabbos that the Nachrim made the ultimate mechitos to make a chotzer? Or dilma loy shna, perhaps he doesn't make a distinction. He says just like you can mevatel over there in the side by side case of chatzeros, so too over here when you had the batim that are opposite one another and the Nachrim then encircled it with walls, meaning on the open sides, making it into chotzer. Thereby, you could also go ahead and mevatel. That's the shaila that he had. Omar lei. So, Rav Sheish responds to Rav Chizda, Ein mevatlin. You cannot mevatel one for the other one. And therefore, according to this man da Omar, that normally says that you can go ahead and mevatel because you can make an eruv on Erev Shabbos, but over here, if you didn't have the ability even to make an eruv on Erev Shabbos, then you cannot mevatel on Shabbos either. Says the Gemara weiter, again an exchange between Rav Chizda and Rav Sheshes. Meis nachri b'Shabbos mahu. Rav Chizda asked Rav Sheshes, if a nachri dies on Shabbos, what is the din? That means to say that we had learned before that if a nachri comes on Shabbos, we said before that one can go ahead and ben soicher from that nachri, and then will also then be able to then mevatel reshus. Now over here, that's a machlokes, but over here, do we say the same thing or not? The Gemara asks like this: Meis nachri b'Shabbos mahu. What is the din? Can you mevatel your reshus or not? The Gemara will explain the question now. According to the opinion says you can go ahead, and that scenario that I said before, when a nachri shows up on Shabbos, you can be soicher and then mevatel reshus. So there's two steps. There's aleph being soicher to the nachri, and beis being mevatel reshus. So you have to do both steps, and that man the Omer says you can do that. So then certainly then hashted harti avdin chadami boy. Then if you can do that over there in that scenario, because you have to do two steps, again, being soicher, the reshus, and then mevatel the reshus, then over here, when you don't have to be soicher because the nachri died on Shabbos, all you have to do is mevatel reshus, certainly you would have to go ahead and mevatel the reshus. So the question is not asked according to that man the Omar. Elo, rather, rather the question is, according to the man the Omer says, Ein soichrin. We do not permit you to go ahead and be soicher to the nachri who shows up on Shabbos and then mevatel your shus. What's the din over here? Because maybe over here it's different, since over here you don't have to be soicher. Do we say because you can't do two, that's why he says over there it will not work, but over here, since the nachri died, all you have to do is mevatel reshus, that would be sufficient, because you don't have to be soicher anymore. Or dilma lo yishna, perhaps he doesn't make a distinction in the same way that you cannot do it over there, mevatel reshus, so too you cannot mevatel reshus over here, even though the nachri dies on Shabbos. Or marle, Rav Chizda responds. Rav Sheshet responds to Rav Chizda. Ani omer mevatlin. I hold that you can mevatel your reshus in this scenario, when the nachri dies. Vehamnuna, referring to Rav Hamnuna, Omar ein mevatlin, he's cholik, and he says not mevatlin.